What the hell happened?
Andrew?
Who there? Who there?
Andrew, it's me, Joe.
Joe.
Yeah. What?
Joe.
What happened?
Joe, when is the next film juice?
It's tonight. What are you doing? Why are you?
How long has it been?
It's been a couple months. Have you been here all break?
Break.
It was like a month, maybe month and a half?
Yes. Yes, of course. Joe. Joe, I haven't seen any new movies. Joe, I haven't seen any of the new movies. I had to watch Just Friends 137 times.
Just Friends. Why would you watch that many times?
It's all that was here, Joe. It's a great movie. It's Anna Faris's breakout role. But you say the show is back.
The show is back. We're back.
What?
Tonight. But not if you're not ready.
No, I just, there were no movies, Joe.
What did you
and
do?
And it was so dark. I had to make my own movies. Break. Release here. Shoot. Let's see what we got. Just Friends. You'll laugh from beginning to end. Ryan Reynolds is overweight. Oh. Gee. Is this it? Get out of here. Why are you with her, Ryan Reynolds? Chris and Jamie have to be together. Chris and Jamie, they're in their own Chris and Jamie world. He lost all that weight for her. That guy can't even sing. Jamie smiles. I'll never let go, Jack. You'll always remember this as the day you almost caught Captain Jack Sparrow. Doc, are you telling me you built a time machine out of a DeLorean? Newman! I'm so clueless. High school is so hard. As if.
You had to make your own movie?
My own movie? What? I haven't seen any of the new movies, Joe. What movies are on the show? What movies are on film just tonight?
Black Panther.
Black Panther is already out?
Yes! You have to see it now. The show is tonight. Then we have the Post.
The Post. Streaming eggs together.
Yeah. And the Presteige is our throwback.
Prestige, Joe. But Film Juice. Film Juice is back.
No, it's back. Tonight.
Film Juice is back, Joe! Back!
Hello everyone and welcome to the second season of Film Juice. I'm your host Joe Dorado.
And I am Andrew Canada. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
It is so glad to be back. We are ready to review some great movies for you. And yeah, let's just kick it off. So the first movie we're doing today is Black Panther.
Gotta do it. Number one movie in America right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. And basically, this follows the character from Civil War, and it follows him following up at Wakanda. He's becoming king, and it kind of deals with the challenges of that. And also, there are characters like Killmonger and Claw that are introduced, and yeah, and then they try and mess things up. So that's basically it without the spoilers, but yeah. So what did you think about it, Andrew?
Oh my gosh, I was so excited for this movie. He was T'Challa was one of my favorite parts of Civil War. Every time he comes on screen and they play the little pan flute,
Yeah.
and then, oh my gosh, he was so cool. Obviously, he and Spider-Man stole the show in Civil War.
Yeah.
But I was, to tell you the truth, I was more pumped for this movie than I was for Homecoming.
Really?
Because we've seen a bunch of Spider-Man movies, and obviously Tom Holland's take on it and this new Marvel Cinematic take on it is much different from Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. But Black Panther, never seen him in a movie before, and now he's there, and I thought
he's
killed it. Killed
he
it this
did.
time.
He
Fantastic
killed it.
movie.
He really did. And I thought he did such a good job. I think the entire cast did a great job in this movie.
That
insane.
was one of my things. Everybody kills in this movie.
Yes.
Everybody has their moment and really nails it. One of the people in the ensemble who I was most excited to see was Andy Serkis as Claw. We saw him a little bit in Age of Ultron.
Yes.
Way back when.
Yeah, he wasn't even in Civil War.
No, he wasn't. But we haven't seen him since Age of Ultron when he kind of mentioned a little Wakanda stuff, and then and he does not disappoint in this movie.
And
such a great actor in general.
He really is, and he's definitely one of my favorites, and I think he's underrated for sure.
No doubt.
But he did really good, and also I have to mention Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan's character, his version of Killmonger, was amazing. He was phenomenal. He was so good.
He probably, as far as the main group of actors, I think he probably does the best.
Yeah, I was so blown away by how good he was in this movie. I really was. I think he kills it in every movie I've seen other than, I didn't even see this movie, but the new Fantastic Four. Whatever.
Yeah.
But every other movie, Creed and this one, so good. Really amazing stuff.
It's another one, another example of him and director Ryan Coogler, collaborating on this film. And anybody who saw 2013's Fruitvale Station, directed by Coogler and starring Jordan, knows that Ryan Coogler is the man.
Yeah.
And this is really, Creed was big.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is such a huge movie because all those movies are big.
Oh,
and this was really, I think, for a lot of people, the first time they're going to see a Coogler movie. And they aren't going to be disappointed because it's
really
a fairly long movie as well. It's 2 hours and 14 minutes.
I was very surprised.
But you know what? I didn't want it to end.
No, I agree. It was really good. The one issue I did have with the movie was I thought the beginning lagged a little bit, just a little bit. It wasn't a big deal at all. It was very good still. It was just that if I had to point out one flaw with this movie, that was it. But to bounce off of that, the soundtrack, Kendrick Lamar did an amazing job.
Been a lot of hype around the soundtrack, and it definitely works in the movie perfectly.
It does. It really does. And I didn't think it would.
Me neither. I was worried about that as well.
I was like, this is good, but like.
But like, is this like, how is this going to be a movie score kind
and
of? But it fit perfectly.
One other thing I think this movie did so well is it showed this culture that we've never been introduced to in this universe before. And I think it showed this new culture and the way they did things very seamlessly. And it did it very well. I was very impressed with like how they showed everything off. It was just really good.
Yeah, it was fantastic. One of the things that really stood out to me was the costume design by Ruth Carter. She nailed it. Good. The costumes were so intricate. And you could just by looking at the movie, you could feel the history.
Yeah. No.
That was so important to Wakanda. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying with the culture. They hit it on the nail.
And not just because it's such a technologically advanced country.
Yeah. They like mixed it perfectly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Balancing those two components of the traditional past and this unbelievably advanced future is not easy. But you could see it in everything.
They did it really well.
The weapons, just the costumes in general.
Yeah.
And I will say this, I think, getting back to the acting, Latita Wright as Suri, T'Challa's sister, and Winston Duke as M'Baku. Those two characters stole the show. He was M'Baku,
the first challenger.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was great.
The gorilla guy.
They were great. I thought the directing was really well done. Like you mentioned.
I agree.
I think some of the shots were. I was surprised. They
Shout out to Rachel Morrison, director of photography, who I follow on Instagram. She also was a DP on Dope, which is one of the most underrated movies of this century.
They took risks with the shots in this movie, I thought. Some of them, for sure. I thought the choreography was very well done with the fight scenes. And the fight scenes steal the show. They're great.
I would say some of the best I've seen since the first season of Marvel's Daredevil on Netflix.
Yeah, they were so well done. You can kind of tell that some part of me wishes that they would like show some blood, just because the issue is like in most Marvel movies it's fine because there's not a lot of like real like killing. It's just a lot of
like people hitting each other.
Beat up. Yeah. But like people are getting stabbed and cut.
Because again, it's that mix of the weaponry, the traditional weaponry.
And I'm not saying like we need a lot of blood or anything. No, not at all. It's just it kind of it looks very fake at some points. If you know what I'm saying.
I guess so. And I agree. I think that would definitely add another level of. It would raise the stakes if we really saw that these people were getting injured. What was at stake? Yes. Because obviously it's alluded to a lot, but at the end of the day, families are going to go see this movie. Yes. Little kids are going to go see this movie.
No, exactly. And I think the way they handled it was the best way they could handle it. I think they did a great job. The last thing I probably want to touch on is the fact that like I haven't seen a movie. A Marvel movie. I just think what this movie did is pretty cool with like the cast and like how they like the everything that this movie did socially even is just amazing. I thought it was really cool how they did that.
A lot of folks have been saying that this is the best Marvel movie ever.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that's true.
I don't think that's
to a certain
true.
aspect.
Yeah.
This is what I want to say.
Okay.
It is, from a story structure standpoint, the best Marvel movie, hands down.
Okay.
Because it's like a Shakespeare play, the family element.
I'll agree with that.
And there's just the royalty and everything. It's amazing.
Yeah,
just
it is.
It's
very
the acts
much
are so
family.
well established.
Yes.
Like you can tell like where
Act
everything.
1, Act 2, Act 3.
Yes, absolutely. God,
it was very well done.
Definitely go see this. What would you give the movie?
If I had to rate it, I would rate it 8.5 juice boxes out of 10. I really enjoyed it. It was very, very good. The beginning lagged a little bit for me, and it isn't my favorite Marvel movie, but it was phenomenal. Everyone should go see it.
Yeah, from an entertainment standpoint, maybe not the best Marvel movie, although it was incredibly entertaining.
Yes.
But from a story standpoint, best one, and I give it a 9. Shout out to the writing by Joe Robert Cole and Ryan Coogler. They nailed this movie.
Did.
You probably are going to go see it if you haven't already, but just check it out and go see it twice. Good movie. Good movie.
Very good.
All right, we're going to be right back to talk about The Post. See you in a couple minutes.
See on page 4 that the projections need to be blood. Next Thursday?
Seriously? Thursday? Can't do that.
This is really inconvenient.
I have yoga that day.
I have no time for this.
So.
I can't do Thursday, but I can do Friday.
Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency. Don't wait. Communicate.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Welcome back to Film Juice, everybody. We had to take a quick break, but we are back here. I am Andrew Canada.
And I am Joe Dorado.
That's right, we are your hosts. The next movie we're going to talk about has been out for a little bit.
Yeah.
But we saw it a couple weeks ago, and we wanted to touch on it. The Post.
Yes.
Directed by Steven Spielberg. It's nominated for Best Picture this year. You know going in, this is going to be a heavy hitter. Not to mention the two stars, Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep, who have never been in a movie together.
Yeah.
And now, God, it lived up to the hype for me. But if you don't know, The Post is about Meryl Streep's character, Kay Graham. It's based on a true story. She becomes the head owner of the Washington Post. The company, the newspaper, is about to go public. And then some folks who work for her find this incriminating evidence of the government's knowledge about the Vietnam War. And it's all about whether or not they're going to run the facts and possibly lose some stake with the shareholders or let the public know the truth. So it's a very compelling movie. Joe, what did you think of this?
I thought it was really good, especially with the subject matter it handled. Going into this movie, I had no idea what it was about, other than it had something to do with the Washington Post. That's all I knew about it. I think so the subject matter it held, it had to tell the movie in a certain way for someone like me who had no idea what was like.
Right, that's the thing. It's definitely a story that a lot of people might not be familiar with.
Exactly, which I think works in the movie's favor, because if everyone knew about the story, no one would probably go see it.
Well, or at least there'd be a lot more pressure to do it a certain way. And he had a lot more, Spielberg, had a lot more freedom. And you could tell that in the way he directed the movie.
Yeah. Some of the shots were really well done. I was surprised. The way they tell the story, I just thought was very compelling.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
That was really good.
Because there's a lot of information. It cuts between characters a lot. And information... you don't always know what certain characters know or don't know.
Yep.
And withholding that information definitely makes it more compelling and keeps interest.
And I want to say Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep did a phenomenal job. They're really good in the movie. But one of my favorite roles in the movie, it was a supporting character, was Bob Odenkirk's character.
Yeah, he nailed it.
Wow. He did so good. He's the main character in Better Call Saul, Saul McGill, and he's also... Saul McGill in Jimmy McGill in Breaking Bad, and he did a great job in this movie. He played a decent role too. I was surprised.
Yeah, I was third billing, and I don't watch Better Call Saul. I've only seen a little bit of Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
So I know Bob Odenkirk obviously, but this was the first time that I really got to see him act, and. What a phenomenal job. I was incredibly impressed.
He's really good.
His longtime pal David Cross also made a couple appearances in the movie. They get to be on screen together.
That was kind of ridiculous to me. It was funny. It was cool. I was just like, they always have to be in a movie together.
Well, just it's Spielberg, so you know it's going to be good, but what a well-directed movie.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was most interested in, I probably would not have done this, but that's why he thought of it, and he's the man. A lot of it is shot handheld.
Yeah.
And that allows the actors, especially when you have such great actors like Hanks and Streep, it allows them to move more freely.
Yes. And one thing, to build off that, one thing this movie did with the handheld shots is when they would very much stay on a character's face, very long, and build suspense and show what they're really feeling. And I think that's some of the best acting like in this movie is when they're not speaking, they're just the camera is showing their emotion. Like they're showing
he lets them act, and that's why he's so good. Another thing that he does incredibly well in this movie is that you can tell, and we've reviewed some movies where directors don't do this, but you can tell that he respects the audience because he doesn't give them any more or any less than what they need to know, and he lets the audience put the pieces together for themselves, which is what I want in a movie. I hate it when there's these weird lines of dialogue where characters just tell the audience what's happening.
I hate that.
It doesn't need to be reiterated. No, just let the use of subtext. Just let them put the pieces together, and it makes it
No, and it was very well done. Yeah. I think that's something that can really make or break a movie like this too. And There was like I'll say this. I said this about the last movie. It wasn't really that big of a deal in the last movie. In this movie, I noticed some of the lagging in the middle a little bit.
Yep.
There was some lag in the middle of this movie. It was a little bit bigger than I noticed for Black Panther.
I feel like that's always going to be a problem when you have a movie, particularly, I think, dealing with a newspaper.
Yes.
You know, something like this. But I think that it does it better than a lot of other movies. Even Spotlight, which is a phenomenal film, that lags a little too much in the middle as compared to this, which obviously it does, but not as much. State of Play, starring Russell Crowe, awful, just a dry movie, just so dry. And I was worried that this was going to have the same problems that had, and it really didn't, at least not to that extent.
No, it didn't. And there was the drag, but like once you hit the third act in this movie, which the way they lead into the third act is with this great scene with Meryl Streep, and that's when the movie picks up and just goes great. And yeah, they steal the show. The script is really well done, and it's just a great story. I'm glad I've seen it. It's just something cool to know, I guess, about history. Like, I never knew about
a lot of it. You know, it takes place in 1971. Richard Nixon is president.
Yep.
And a lot of movies that show the presidents do an interesting way. Like if you look at Lee Daniels, the Butler, you have a lot of famous actors playing different characters. But I love how they do Nixon in this because you don't actually get a good look at Richard Nixon.
No, you don't.
And he's separated from the story and from the other characters. And it makes it also better because you can use the actual audio, which they did from tapes from his office.
And I think that was a really great call. What would you rate this movie if you...
I would give this one... I would give it an 8.5 because directing is phenomenal. I thought it was fairly well written. Not super well written, but I think most of that could be accredited to the directing and the performances. And the pacing was a little off, like you touched on. But 8.5 is a good score, I think.
I'll give it a 7.5. The only reason is because...
I meant to give it an 8. I'm going to change that to an 8.
Okay. I'm going to give it to a 7.5. I'm going to give it a 7.5 just because I enjoyed it, but it's not my favorite kind of movie. And also, I wouldn't watch it again. Even though it was really good, I wouldn't watch it again. And yeah, the lag in the middle
for a movie like this,
very boring.
It was one of the best that I've seen.
Oh, no, yeah. I completely agree.
As far as the entertainment and everything else.
Yeah. But yeah, so there you go. We'll be right back after this commercial break with the Prestige. So
stay tuned.
I'll be right back.
Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
It's me, Artie. Come see what I collected from the Creative Galaxy in my idea box.
Transform your world.
Will you help me make art?
Before you throw it away,
Hey, I have an idea.
think outside the box.
Go be amazing!
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
Welcome back to Film Juice. I'm your host, Joe Dorado.
And I am Andrew Canada.
And the throwback of the week.
This is one you've wanted to do for a long time.
God, I really
And
have.
I will admit that I was a little iffy on it, but you made the right choice.
This movie is called The Prestige. It is a Christopher Nolan film. It was came out in 2006. It takes place in the 19th century, and it follows two magicians, Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale. And they are feuding magicians who are trying to one-up each other constantly the entire time. And a lot of stuff gets involved. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it. Because there is a lot in this movie that is just a spoiler, just knowing. Michael Caine's in it. Scarlett Johansson's in it. Amelia Clark's in it.
Yeah, I was so surprised to see her. Because obviously we're so used to seeing her as Daenerys Targaryen, Mother of Dragons, and she had a small role in this part.
What did you think of this movie?
Like I said, I was apprehensive at first.
Yeah.
Because I am not a huge Christopher Nolan fan, and I'll admit I've only seen about half of the 10 features that he's directed.
Mm-hmm.
But I was blown away by it, honestly. I didn't expect to like it this much. One of the things, of course, Christopher Nolan loves to play with nonlinear storytelling.
Yes.
And in this one, I found it definitely more compelling than even in Inception, because Inception is sort of, streams and that such. But
I think it's very comparable to Memento. Like, Memento, I think, did it very well, but I think this movie did it maybe even better.
It was definitely easier for an audience to follow.
Yes. Yeah. I'd say that for sure. I don't even know where to start with this movie. Let me start with the performances. The performances in this movie are amazing. Hugh Jackman is one of my favorite actors.
Yeah, I hope he starts to do more roles like this again.
Yes, I do too.
And I think he will now that, he's obviously done with Logan, which is unfortunate because he was so good as that character.
And The Greatest Showman, that took up a lot of his time, I guess.
Yeah.
That was like 7
And then
years.
I hope he gets away from stuff like that. Not that that was a bad movie, of course, but I want to see him do more stuff like this.
Exactly.
I'm like Prisoners. Remember when he was in Prisoners?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think he does a phenomenal job in this movie. And Christian Bale does a great job in this movie too. Scarlett Johansson, Michael, and everyone does an amazing job in this movie. And I think the big pull for this movie is the way the story is told is very, I don't know how to explain it. The way the story is told, it takes you on this journey that you don't really know where you're going.
No.
The entire time you really don't know where it's taking you, but as you go through this movie, the stakes get raised higher and higher and higher, and it does it perfectly. And eventually, it takes you to this place where you don't know like how you got there.
It's
I guess.
surprising.
I don't know. It's very surprising,
and it does
it
takes a turn in the third act, and we talked about this a little more earlier with our technical director Carl. It takes a turn into almost a supernatural element.
Yes.
Which threw me for a loop a little bit, more so in how it involved itself at the end.
Yes.
What I really want to talk about, though, is what you briefly touched on, how it does take the audience on this journey, and they're not exactly sure which way the story is going to turn.
Yes.
That's the most important part of this movie to me, and I'll tell you exactly why. Because it is a movie centered around magic.
Yes.
And these magicians. And that curiosity, it keeps the audience paying attention, and it keeps them very curious.
Yes.
The same way that you would be watching a great magic trick.
Exactly.
And just that Christopher Nolan was able to pull that off says everything.
He basically showed magic. Like this movie is basically one big magic trick, and that is the coolest part of this movie. Is every act is a step in the magic trick, and that's what the Prestige is. The Prestige is basically the steps in a magic trick for a magician, structurally. And he explains that a few times in the movie, and that's, whether you know it when you first start watching the movie is a magic trick. It is constantly trying to take you somewhere and constantly trying to kind of fool you. The movie tries to fool you.
Yes, it does.
Very well. And I think it does it perfectly. The misdirection, like, it's weird to talk about a movie like it's a magic trick, but this movie is.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's what it's all about.
That is a feat. It's really well done. And me being a magician, it struck me like in a different way because I could relate to how well done it
That's
was.
what sets it apart for me from being a good movie to an exceptional movie.
Yeah.
Is that he was able to do that. I also really enjoyed David Bowie makes an appearance as Nikola Tesla.
Oh, yes.
And I really enjoy how they touch on Tesla and Edison feud.
Yeah,
and parallel that with the feud between the magicians played by Jackman and Bale. I thought that was really cool.
I think the way they show how some of these older tricks were done is really cool. Like they show kind of like the ugly side of magic. That's what I think. That's another thing. This movie
really do.
It doesn't glorify magic at all, especially in the 19th century. A lot of the way the tricks were done is not great.
And it just shows you that these guys are performers, right?
Yes.
Just trying to make a living doing these tricks.
And I think it shows like
getting their hands dirty.
Yeah, and especially performers. It shows a really cool narrative for performers where they want to get what they want no matter what, no matter who they hurt, and they're cutthroat. Like the business they're in is cutthroat because they have to be better than the other person or else they lose out on sales. And the feud between these two really, really builds. Like at first it's like, okay, you can see there's something there, but it builds so high. Honestly,
just the way it shows the history between the two characters, because it jumps through a lot of time.
Yes.
But it's well paced, and the reason for that again is the non-linear storytelling because you can jump through all these flashbacks and stuff, and once they establish that early on in the movie, the audience accepts it.
I also think this is one of those movies that if you watch twice, you're going to enjoy it so much more because when you first watch the movie, the beginning doesn't mean as much because you don't really know where the story's going. But the beginning tells you more than you actually think, which is also part of a magic trick. And once you know what you're looking for, which is also part of a magic trick, you know like where it's going. I don't know. It does it so well done, and I really enjoyed it. I would love to talk about a lot of the big things that happen in this movie, specifically the big spoilers. We shouldn't, because even though this movie is somewhat old, it's not very well known. Like it's very sad because it's in my opinion one of Christopher Nolan's best movies.
I agree.
Easily. It's probably one of my favorites of his. It's if not my favorite. I love it.
Like I said, I was incredibly surprised by how good it was.
Yeah, and would you say this is your favorite Christopher Nolan movie? Just
man, you know what? Yes, because you can tell how much time you really put into directing it.
Yes.
The direction of this movie really stands out.
I think the writing's really well done too.
I agree, and it was written by him and his brother, Jonathan.
That's great.
Yeah, and they write movies together.
No,
it was very good.
No, it was, and it's on Netflix. I think everyone who has Netflix should watch this movie. It is so good. It's so enjoyable. I haven't enjoyed a movie this much.
It's very good
in a long time.
It was shot very well. I do think a lot of that was Christopher Nolan, but some of it might have been the DP Wally Pfister. Sure. But there are some really poetic shots that are just...
for sure. Oh, the hats. The hats show everything. The hats show everything. That's all I gotta say. Anyways, that's really all we have time left for. Let's give our ratings. I gotta give it a 10 out of 10. I don't really have any flaws for this movie. I loved it so much. I really enjoyed it. I don't like throwing these out there all the time, but this one is just a personal favorite.
I know you love this movie. I'm going to give this movie an 8.5 because while the direction is exceptional and he balances everything so well, I don't like the way that it ended.
Okay, that's
not
fair.
necessarily
and we can't really
the twist
about
at the end, because there are a lot of twists through this movie. One of which I really enjoy. The rest are fine.
Yes,
but I didn't like the way.
That's fair, and we can't. I wish we could get into it, but we really can't because it'll spoil everything.
But the rest of the movie is very good, and the build up to it is phenomenal.
Exactly. Yes, I couldn't agree more. But okay.
All right. Hey, good first episode, Joe.
Yeah, that was great.
Welcome back to the season.
Yeah. So tune in next week.
We will be back
next Thursday, 9 o'clock. I'm Joe Dorado. You can follow me on Twitter at YouKnowMagicJoe. And,
and I'm Andrew Canada. And stay tuned for Fredtown, USA.
Yes.
My favorite show of all time.
So good.
I love that show.
See
All
you
right,
guys
thanks for
next week.
tuning in,
See you
everybody.
at the
Take care.
movies.
Bye, Fred.